What if no one's waiting for the creative work that you're working on? Welcome to Writing Through It. My name is Eric, and that's the topic today, is what do you do? How do you keep going in your creativity when no one's really asking for it? This is a really important topic because the majority of creative people out there that are doing creative things don't have an audience. And they're not even doing it for that. And maybe some of them are, but I want to talk about some of the core tenets here of why creativity matters and how it should matter to you for it to become a career or become just a passionate expression of who you are that's good for your mental health. Like in many things, the first thing is why are you creating? Connecting with that and changing it as it goes, because I do believe that as you go, your why will change. Mine has changed. I did want to become an author, but now I want to be someone who creates consistently because it's good for my health. My mind is clearer when I'm creating. I'm a lot more able to adapt to life as I'm creating. And I have that way to express. Otherwise, I'm not getting something out of myself that needs to get out. Used to be for external validation. When I made movies, people had to react a certain way. I had to be seen as good. I had to be seen as talented, whatever I needed as a metric. Whenever it wasn't met, it was terrible for me. When it was, it felt really good, and I kept going. That's not how we create sustainable practices. Redefining the why and connecting and truly believing it and readdressing it over and over and recognizing when you get thrown from it that maybe you're thrown from your why. When the feedback's negative, when you are open to other people, maybe that is a sign that you're not in line with your why. And when we get angry at someone for being better than us or someone whose work we don't appreciate, starts judging ours, perhaps that anger is more a sign to look at our own unexpressed expectation that we would just be seen as brilliant by everybody and not the reality of, oh, they're just individuals who are judging from their own perspective, and that has nothing really to do with me. Unless it does, unless I can take something away from it. That anger is a sign that you're not aligned with your why, or it's too early and you're still figuring it out and you're exposing yourself to too many people, and that boundary is being crossed where you're trying to protect this creative work you're doing and it's not ready yet. So you get to decide that for yourself, but it's not because that person is bad. As soon as we do that, we're looking at external sources as the reason we're happy or not happy, the reason we do something or we don't do something. So it's always an indicator that you need to go back inside and ask yourself, why am I doing this? The second thing that helps is realizing it's a ritual we're developing, a consistent habit we're developing, and not a race. We have no finish. We have no deadline. We're just doing this because it's good for us. And it takes time to get there because at first you have 1,000 words, you have the sketch of an outline, you have an idea for a poem, whatever it is. And as time goes on, it evolves and becomes something more, but it still feels like the end is never going to be in sight, especially with long projects. Like my novel it's a big project, even 5,000 words, you're like, wow, it's nowhere near done. That can become overwhelming. But when we fall in love with the process and developing that ritual and that habit, eventually we stop thinking about the end goal, the result that we're shooting for. And we get so lost in the process that time starts to fly. And all of a sudden you do check writing statistics, stats or whatever. You're like, holy it's 65,000 words. And that's one thing I recommend. I used to be obsessed with how many words I got done in a day. And I do talk about novels because that's what I do. But if you're checking in with your progress, it can be this for anything. Like, how far did I get today? Well, not far enough. But as long as you're in love with the process, it doesn't matter how far you got that day, because you just are acknowledging you engaged with it and you weren't overwhelmed by the totality of what was left to do. And then you surprise yourself after a month, after 2 months, and you're like, just churning out consistently, that's going to accumulate. But when you're obsessed with the number on the page, the word count, here's where it really gets you in a bad spot. Eventually you might have to reduce some of that. Eventually that work, that painting isn't going to make it into your gallery, or you're not going to show it because it was, 40 hours of your life, but it didn't meet the standard and other things were better. And so it feels like a waste. If I have to remove a chapter or a chunk of a chapter, that can feel like too much because, man, it took me forever to get to 90,000 words. Now I'm back to 86. Now I got to write 4,000 more words. That becomes very much scarcity mindset. And it's like you're protecting and you're blind to seeing the truth in reducing what you created to make it more powerful because you were obsessed with this number. And so getting obsessed with the process, not obsessed in an unhealthy way, but falling in love with it, makes it so it's not really that big of a deal if you have to remove it because you're serving the story, you're serving the creation, not the word count. Another thing I'd say is create what excites you. If you're doing this because it excites you, there's a byproduct that usually happens, and that it'll excite other people. Maybe not the people you want to excite, but the people who do care about it will find it. So you create slowly, you let it evolve slowly, you think about it, and you focus on the areas you're really excited about. I've done this from time to time where I get a skeleton outline of a chapter and I jump to the next one because I know I want to hit this hard, and I hit it hard and I really do a good job there. And then I go back after I've gotten some of that main beats out and develop that other part. And then by the time I've done that, I understand the story better. So now I have more fuel to go back and shore up this part of the creation. And that takes pressure off. It takes me and gets my momentum going because I didn't get stuck on this one part. I jumped it a little bit and wrote, and then I came back to it. In my novel right now, I did a lot of the hero storyline, and now I'm going back to develop the antagonist storyline. But I didn't want to jump back and forth. I wanted to keep that momentum going and come back and address the other stuff with more understanding. So in some ways for me, I found that to be really helpful, and it kept the forward momentum going. And that's really what's critical, is not staying stuck, but like if you're stuck, shifting to something new, seeing something from a different perspective, doing an exercise that way can allow you to get unstuck in that thing you're currently stuck in. Another thing is to protect the joy of creation. This one is trickier because by protecting the joy, you can overprotect it. You can only do the things that bring you joy, or only do things if it brings you joy. And that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that some ideas will be thrown away. But what I recommend is not throwing them away, but putting them on a scratch sheet. In my novel, I have a scratch sheet where I have paragraphs that I thought were really great but don't fit in, and they may never make it anywhere. But they might serve as an idea for me to work something into the novel later, and we'll see if it happens. But I keep them. And that protects my joy because I'm not seeing myself as slashing this part unless I genuinely think it needs to go. That's also something that happens, but sometimes it hurts to delete stuff. And so I move it to the margins. I put it in the margins, and that's what the scratch sheet is. Even if an idea comes up that doesn't serve the story, I'll put it in the margins. I have a list of notes in my phone that is a huge list of every idea I ever had and hope to write in the future, and it's lengthy. I don't think half of them will ever come to fruition, and some of them are a little bit too overwhelming, but I love the idea so much that I put it down, and maybe I'll give that idea to somebody else in the future. The point is, your joy is in the creative expression and the inspiration, so get that out, put it somewhere else. And if you like it in your story but it doesn't fit, put it somewhere else. Just put it in the margins until your story's done. That way you don't feel like the pain of suffering through this, what you would consider unnecessary cutting of some idea that you want to just jump into. If it doesn't serve the story, put it somewhere else, and that will protect your joy. And maybe even giving it to someone else in the future is another way of protecting joy, because now you're serving, and that's a huge need of your spirit, is to serve others. The last thing is to accept the season you're in. I've talked about this many times. You know, there are 4 seasons a year: spring, summer, fall, winter. So does your creation, so does your creativity. You have the spring where you've got all these new ideas budding, and then you got the summer where everything's just really hitting and flowing, and then you have the fall where things are slowing down, you're getting a little bit stuck, and then you have the winter where you're like, I don't know what to do, I don't know where to go next. But soon the spring comes again, and then you have the new ideas, because in that winter you took all of your energy and put it into yourself to think, and through that thinking you sustained yourself, and then because you were open, the idea happens, the inspiration happens. There's no timeline on this, so don't put a timeline on it, but recognize the season you're in, of slowing down, going in your winter, so that you can come forward in your spring strong with ideas. You have to allow those ideas to happen. And depending on where you are, it's not good or bad. It's just awareness, and awareness leads to choice. And the more conscious choice we have, the better choices we can make, because we understand why we're in the position we're in and what we should do with it. That was one of the tenets of my coaching, was trying to understand what season you're in, and then based on that, what you're supposed to be doing with that information. Because once you know where you are on the map, every fantasy novel has it, now you know where to go. You know you're going over the mountains, you're going through the river, through the scary forest, you're aware of it, and now you prepare yourself for it. You're in the summer, well, enjoy it, but know the fall is coming. So when it does, you won't be surprised. There's always this preparation of understanding the flow of creativity. It's mysterious, but it's not at the same time. We just have to have awareness to catch the rising tides and the ebb and flow of all of these things, so we can surf those waves of chaotic creation. And then we can find the joy. We can protect it. And regardless of who's waiting for us or not waiting for us to produce it, we will have produced it, thereby helping ourselves. That's going to do it for this video. Thank you for stopping by. Hope to see you in the next one. And until then, journey well, my friends.